The types of experiments. 1. Laboratory experiments. In many studies of psychology, experimental procedures are conducted in artificial, controlled settings such as a laboratory or other settings where controls are applied to administer and operationalize effective measurements and variables. To put it precisely, a lot of the participants who partake in this study are not in their usual environment for the behavior they are being tested on, along with a strict and structured set of controls which govern the situation, which are set up by the experimenter. Evaluation. Strengths. High controls, meaning more controls on extraneous variables from affecting the DV. High controls, standardized procedures, more reliable. When variables are controlled and monitored, finding out the cause and effect relationship is faster and easier. This improves validity, accuracy and authenticity of a research. Weaknesses. High controls also mean low ecological validity. Participants getting an idea of the aim and the setting might make the results prone to demand characteristics. Low ecological validity also limits generalizability of the outcomes to a real-life context. This makes the findings also prone to researcher bias, a confounding variable. Example, SIL. The study conducted by Milgram et al., which tested the levels of obedience under an authority figure to test his German hypothesis. It was conducted at the Yale University and the procedure was highly controlled and standardized, with the experimenter advising verbal prods, the environmental setting of the laboratory. For instance, the interview was conducted in a room where an electrical shock generator was placed which had a range of 15V-450V, which the teacher, the fixed participant via ballet draw, would have to use on the confederate, the learner, to reprimand him for leaning errors under command from the experimenter. This makes the procedure highly standardized. 2. Field experiments. A field experiment takes place in a normal and regular environment that is usually the participant's real-life setting, for the behavior that is being studied. While the four can still be controlled and monitored, the influence of extraneous variables cannot be as strictly controlled. Strengths. It has high ecological validity, as it is more reflective of the participant's behavior in real-life situations. As it is being conducted in a natural setting, where the participants are unaware of the aim or the objective of the study, having less exposure to the four, there is an immunity to demand characteristics. They are high in generalizability and representativeness of the group being studied. Weaknesses. It is harder to control variables in the study, which makes it difficult to standardize and thus to replicate. This may threaten credibility of the study. If certain controls are not established, vital information and data can be missed out depending on the scope of the experiments. Human errors in researching are highly probable, which are difficult to account for. May raise the ethical issue of consent as participants are unaware of them being studied. Example, SIL. In the study by Pilavin et al., the setting of the experiment was that of New York's infamous underground subway station and its running train carriages, which New Yorkers used for their everyday commute, to test the theories of bystander apathy and diffusion of responsibility in an emergency situation. With the preset controls, variables involved the victim being male, of black/white ethnicity, drunk or ill, and all in the same standardized attire. The researchers were 2 males and 2 females, to limit gender and researcher bias, and were instructed to complete the whole experimental procedure on a prescheduled 7.5-minute train circuit to record and assess participant behavior. Moreover, victim behavior and helper behavior were modeled and staged respectively. The criteria of participant behavior, voluntary helping, was also operationalized respectively as of that in help initiated in critical area early, 70 seconds, and late, 150 seconds, and adjacent area, early, 70 seconds, and late, 150 seconds. The spontaneity of the public's helping or neglecting behavior based upon the named variables in their natural, habitual setting makes this a field experiment, with high ecological validity. 3. Natural experiments. A natural experiment, like a field experiment, is conducted in the participant's natural, everyday life setting where they are unaware that they are being researched, making it a covert observation. However, here the experiments have no control over the monitoring or manipulation of variables or the levels of the 4. They happen, change and occur by themselves, and so do the differences and variations in the experiment, meaning that the 4 is naturally occurring. This, according to many psychologists, deems this type of experiment untrue, as the researcher cannot assess, operationalize or control the variables. Strengths: has extremely high ecological validity and representativeness, as participants are exhibiting the most natural of their behavior patterns. Less prone to demand characteristics, as it is a covert observation. Less prospects of standardizing or controlling procedures, which may add confounding variables, which may alter the result of the experiment entirely. Low validity. Weaknesses: possibly more time-consuming and expensive than lab or field experiments. There is no control over the variables in the study, which may expose it to multiple limitations. Standardization and replication. Credibility. Researcher bias. Validity of the DV. Generalizability of the results. Example, non-SYL. In a study by Hodges and Tizard et al., which was aimed at investigating the effects of institutional upbringing on later attachments, of privation on later social and emotional development, if the effects of privation can be reversed, on 65 kids in residential nurseries since they were a couple of months old. It was primarily a longitudinal study, and a natural experiment where the 4, what happened to the children at age 4, followed naturally. The children were assessed for social and emotional competence at 4, 8, and 16 years old, which comprised of interviewing the children and their parents and teachers with a set of questionnaires. The care provided was good, but they were not encouraged to form attachments with the children, i.e. privation transpired. At age 4, almost 24 kids were adopted, 15 were restored to their actual, original homes, and the rest stayed in institutions. The control group was closely accorded the experimental group in sibling number, home location, London, parental profession, situation in family, age, gender, etc.